of exercises that can be done sitting in a chair. And I'll tell you, if you do this for 5 minutes, you'll be sweating. Or this.
And it looks so easy.
Yeah, or this. Or this. There's the 6 paths again. And I'm sitting. I haven't gone anywhere.
What about stretching? Did we talk about stretching,
is
or
a funny,
do you need to?
I don't need to.
You don't
but
need
I will
to.
only
Okay.
tell you this, because we use stretching to cover everything. Actually, stretching technically is the last part of the movement, and usually you do it when you're still. When you're in movement, you're not stretching. Horses don't stretch when they're running. They are lengthening. But that's a technical term.
All right.
Stretching is good for you generally. Yeah.
All right. How can we reduce the body-mind decline we see in the aging process?
Okay, now we get to the brain, right? So we're
Yes.
firing the brain up, right? And we've got not only interesting crossword puzzles or projects that you're doing, but now you've got your body engaged. And once you engage the body, you are firing muscles. Now the muscle activity is generating chemical responses. You are stimulating in the neurons of the brain growth factors. That's the new frontier. You are actually stimulating factors that are growing new neurons. Okay?
Yes,
So you're
yes.
instead of your brain deteriorating and getting full of plaque, which is what happens, the brain is firing new circuits. So it is through the muscles, through the physical activity, that you're stimulating the brain. That is the channel. That's why physical activity is the greatest stimulation to the brain. John Rady, whom I have to cite here, has described this beautifully in The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise in the Brain. Talked about the growth factors, talked about the chemistry, talked about how people who act, they have a study in Finland, for example, over 25 years, people who did active exercise 2-3 times a week had 50% less dementia, 50% less colon cancer. So all of the studies that we're showing are showing that exercise increases levels of, for example, of insulin. It has to do with the heart. It's the best thing you can do for your cardiovascular system. It's the best thing you can do for your pulmonary system. It's the best thing you can do for your brain itself. It's indisputable. And that's the missing link, is that we are exercise deficient. We are way, way down in our exercise diet, so to speak, or daily minimum, I would call it. Right. Someone said 10,000 steps, which is about 5 miles.
Yes.
Paleolithic ancestors got at least 12K, which is about 7.6 miles per day of exercise, minimum, okay, and ate less food. We eat more food and get less exercise. You can see where that's going to go. The outcome is pretty clear.
Talk a little bit about diet, just basic, good, healthy diet.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if you look at diets like the Mediterranean diet, which is considered one of the best in the world, and you have the Chinese diet, which was a type of not a macrobiotic, but called a 5-element. Those are good diets. You want to balance, you don't want to overload your system with too many fats and too much glucose. You want to have a fairly good balance of the whole grains. The greens, the vegetables, the legumes, and some minimum amount of meats and fish. You don't want to overload the system with too much meats because that clogs the whole system up.
Okay.
Amazing. It's, so, you know, diet is part of this, but believe it or not, it is not as important or as valuable as exercises.
Exercise is even more important.
Yes, people have gone without food in World War II and actually came out healthier in some instances. So that actually the body's used to being deprived for a long period of time, and that's a stimulant. There's a chemistry adaptation to it that is actually beneficial. We do not recommend that you go out and just starve yourself. We're not talking about that. But the idea of reducing fat intake, increasing whole grain, get away from the sugars will kill you.
And sugars are carbohydrates, correct?
Sugars are carbohydrates, absolutely.
Which is hard for some people to understand.
If you understand whole grain carbohydrate, that's a different story, but the sugars are deadly.
There was a study done on rats, and I know you're familiar with this, years ago, where they gave them, I think, at least a third less food, and they did live longer.
Yes, that's right.
Which is very interesting.
Same reason, yeah.
But I would like to talk about your training institute and what you do and how you train people, and just start from there?
Good. You know, we train people, we train anybody. We will train people. We have people come to our seminars, just ordinary clients and who want to learn the method. They come to our classes. They can actually study it for 100 hours for personal benefit. That was one of the values of the Feldenkrais method as well. People came for their own personal training. We'll call it personal.
Okay.
But also then we train physical therapists, movement educators, massage therapists, alternative therapists who want to incorporate this into their work, because this is kind of like a common denominator. In other words, what we're showing is common to all movement-related therapies because it's the base. It's the heart of the matter. And like, again, like a musician, if you learn the notes, you can play classical or you can play jazz or you can play rock and roll. But you got to know the basics. So we train people here in Worcester, actually, at the Bancroft School. We train them in Watertown. The Bancroft School actually has been conducting our program now for 3 years, so they've been sponsoring it or been hosting it. And so we will have these seminars going on usually once a month, 1 day a month, and people can call to go to our website, which is www.core-integration.com, or just put my name in, DellaGrotte, or put in core integration and look for the DellaGrotte variation. You can get all the information on this, or you can call us at 978-461-0221. We'll send this out to you.
And we're going to repeat that at the end of the show.
Sure.
We're coming to the end of the show right now. But now you train the trainers, what they call
practitioners?
practitioners?
I train practitioners. And then when they get to the next level, I train the trainers who are going to go out and teach this when I'm no longer here.
Oh, you'll be here forever, I'm sure.
No.
You will.
Well, I'm doing pretty well, and it feels good, and I have no problems. So that's the good news so far.
What made you decide to come into this field?
This is a very fascinating topic, and I would take another 3 shows.
That's fine.
From the university world to move over. But you know, it's the same thing. It's education. It's just that I found the right niche for myself. In the university, it was all head.
Yes,
it's all head. You could cut the head off and leave the body behind. And I found a way of doing this work where I could take my body with me and use my head. Because this is mental work. This is mental type of activity. It stimulates the brain. The Feldenkrais method is a big stimulant to the brain because it makes you think. And anything that makes you think and move has a double benefit.
All right.
Okay?
Now, other than your knee problem, did you have any other problems before you got into the core integration?
Yes.
Do you feel better, or do you weigh less?
No question. I have no problems at this time. I used to have problems. I had bad back problems